energy is essential, and there's we have to progress along, that transition, and help all those industries deliver that essential energy, globally, in a sustainable manner. So I mean, so we do this, with HSBC by financing these industries and helping with the transition as an institution. But within the risk world, I mean, you and I as risk practitioners, sitting in the second line of defense, what role do you see us playing in that transition and helping those customers? Maybe, I don't know if you can talk perhaps just at the high level, at HSBC group level, and then how does that translate down, to actions on the ground?
On a number of levels. One actually is working with the business to help articulate the risk appetite that we need, in particular around transition risks. What are the sectors? What are the exposures? What is the appetite that we have for the transition risk? So one of the key things from the second line is to be really helping the business articulate and steer that risk appetite as we move through the transition. Second one is helping the business and building the capabilities ourselves within risk around making sure that we have the capabilities to understand those businesses that are likely to rise in transition. The renewables, are different types of activities, in particular if we go into some of the newer, cleaner tech side of things, making sure that we have within risk those capabilities to assess that and support the business within that. Another area of important engagement is around the data. We have to be evidence-based and data-driven in how we assess climate risk. We ourselves in risk need to be gathering the information for that. And that is one of the areas we're working in tandem with the business in terms of building the data infrastructure, understanding the data needs, and providing the MI in support of how they and we are managing in transition risk are again, through the areas that I would call out. They're not the only ones, but they're three very important areas.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I mean, I think you said earlier, the problem is we don't have all the information today, and I think data is one of those problems. Through the complexity of the EU taxonomy, the complexity of having unified standards, but the risk world does have that data somewhere. I mean, it's just a matter of how do we collect it, aggregate it.
It is, and but also I think data is a challenge, but it's not an excuse. We should be realizing that it's a real challenge for us to get some of the data, and not necessarily because of historical data limitations. There are new challenges that climate risk brings for us. The modeling of scenarios is very different. We use integrated assessment models, which pull together the science and the economics and financial systems in very different ways. So that calls for a new set of data. The transition risks involve temperature alignment. So if you think about everything being, we're trying to line up not necessarily to a P&L number, but understanding how, if a temperature rise of X degrees plays out, how will that impact P&L? So that brings out another set of data understanding. Or we have the geospatial aspects of climate risk, the physical aspects of climate risk. So all of those are key new data areas that we need to gather. We need to understand how they hang together. We need to understand how we make risk management decisions around them, and that becomes part of the challenge.
Yeah, so I imagine that's a pretty complex exercise, certainly at the size of a bank like HSBC. I know you set up a climate risk oversight forum recently, where I think you look at these issues about data, and you spoke about decision making. So I imagine that's where that takes place. Maybe could you give us a sense of what this climate forum looks at within HSBC, and perhaps what are your key priorities there?
Yeah, so the climate. One of the other aspects of climate risk which is really important is governance. So coming right down from the board, and the Group Risk Committee and through to the Group Executive Committee and RMM, it's important to have the right level of governance to make sure that the key issues and the key decisions are are being really thought through at the right level. So the Climate Risk Oversight Forum is the governance forum under RMM that Pam has asked us to set up to make sure that, you know, we at a senior level are looking at the key um, risk management decisions around climate risk. How do we drive the climate risk framework? How do we build the risk appetite framework around it? How are we driving out the data strategy? So those are the kind of issues that the Climate Risk Oversight Forum are driving. But it's really to be the ensuring that there's tight and appropriate, but not overly bureaucratic governance at the center and then in the respective regions to make sure that we're really executing on our mobilization of our climate risk program.
Sounds like quite the endeavor, Alan. Quite a big agenda.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We try to,
yeah,
but actually we need to keep it very focused because it's to your point, climate risk affects every single one of our risks. When we were even one of the big things that the forum had to make as a decision was, is climate risk a kind of risk category in its own right, you know, a level one risk, or is it something that impacts
all
the
of them. Yeah.
all of them? I mean, we made the decision that it kind of is a cross-cutting risk that impacts all of the risks because that's why it does. That's why it is, you
So maybe as a bonus question, Alan.
know.
Yeah, well, a bit of a surprise one. I saw a draft version of our sustainability disclosures for our annual report when they were being drafted. I think it was back in December, and this year, obviously, the disclosures that we're putting into our annual reports are, extensive. I think there's a lot in there. Are you happy with what the bank has communicated to shareholders? You think there are more areas to improve?
I think and they were published last week. I
Yes.
was it has moved on quite a lot, and I'm really happy and really appreciative of all the teams that of the excellent work that they've done to move it forward this year. Is there more to do? Almost undoubtedly so. Um, and actually, it comes back to what I was saying earlier around data. It's the if you and I encourage everyone who's kind of dialed in here to have a look at our TCFD reports, the extensive disclosures that we've given this year around our strategy, around our risk management and governance, around the high risk sectors and how we see both the opportunities and the risks arising within them, around our first scenario exercise that we did this year, around the factor analysis which we did on our automotives to give some insights into to how we measure temperature alignment. All of those are really big um, and expanded disclosures to help people have a better understanding of the climate risks that we're running. There still is more to do because getting the data so that we can give more granular information is than what we did this year is the next step. But this year and the expanded disclosures this year gives a very good and deeper insight into the nature of the risks. You know, in particular those bits of our balance sheet and our wholesale balance sheet where where the higher risk transaction sectors are.
I agree. It makes for fascinating reading
Yeah,
for anyone who's interested.
yeah.
Well, Alan, thanks so much for your time today. It's been great chatting with you, and thank you for your insights. I think a lot of people will be interested in knowing what HSBC is doing at the top of the house.
Yes, no, thanks, Thomas. This is quite genuinely the defining commercial opportunity and risk management challenge of our generation, and definitely for our careers and the rest of our careers, it's going to be like that. And I think it's, as much as it's challenge, I think it's really an exciting privilege to be part of that. So thanks so much, for giving me the opportunity to share some reflections on that today.